This is CBC Vancouver News.
Got it out of the closet. It's been in storage for a little while now, but yeah, ready to go.
Geared up, a bluebird day for riders as ski season sweeps in early in BC.
To me, deli is supreme comfort food. That's somewhat of a dying business in the world right now.
Preserving a slice of history, a mainstay in Vancouver's Jewish community under threat of redevelopment. And
I am really glad that my parents decided to bring us to Canada.
50 years after being forced to flee, Ugandan refugees reflect on calling BC home. Good evening, I'm Lien Yeung. Thanks for joining us. The ski and snowboard season in Metro Vancouver officially kicked off today. Hundreds of riders geared up for an early opening at Cypress Mountain Resort. Forecasts are calling for more cool and wet weather. And as Saurabh Sandhu tells us, it's good news for anyone looking to hit the slopes.
The mountain peaks are white again. Armed with skis and snowboards, hundreds lined up for a left to Vancouver's slice of paradise. And just like that, ski season on the North Shore Mountains has begun. The first to open is Cypress Mountain Resort. It's an early start, which was a welcome surprise.
This is definitely the earliest I've ever skied in the ski zone.
And definitely we did not expect the snow to be this early. I thought it would have been much later, like at least December.
Whistler's opening date's the 24th of November, so it's great to be skiing at one of the local hills like 2 weeks earlier.
The 2-year-old and the 5-year-old went twice, and now the 7-year-old and her dad are doing something.
Cypress Mountain saw 37 centimeters of natural snow earlier this week. With 5 days of snowmaking, the slopes were ready for a fresh season.
Well, this is an early start. Usually it's, at least 10 days further along.
Of the 3 local ski mountains, Grouse is expected to open next. However, Mount Seymour does not have any snowmaking capacity, which means no early start for them.
We're sitting with a base of around 50 centimeters, and that's a little bit lower than we would like. So we're just going to sit tight and wait for some more snow.
And meteorologists say there is a good likelihood that more snow will be here soon.
As we head into winter, there is a good chance that it will be cold and snowy once again. This is our third La Nina winter. Very unusual to see 3 in a row. And typically La Nina means colder than normal weather conditions here across BC.
Elsewhere in BC, Silver Star Mountain Resort opened its cross-country trails on Saturday. Alpine skiing is expected the week after. Whistler Ski Hills are sticking to its planned opening date of November 24th. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, West Vancouver.
A West Vancouver officer is lucky to be alive after he was hit in a rock slide last night. It happened around 5:30 p.m. on Cypress Bowl Road. The road was closed for several hours while the debris was cleared. The officer was on a routine patrol when the slide barreled down on him, destroying his cruiser and hitting a civilian vehicle. The officer was rushed to hospital. A very large laceration was made to his head, but is expected to have a full recovery. Fortunately, occupants in the second vehicle were not injured. Our painting was the target of vandals this afternoon. Apologies for the... Climate activists threw maple syrup on the artwork at the Vancouver Art Gallery. They also glued their hands to the wall in a tactic now seen at galleries around the world. Activists have doused famous works with paint and food, in one case splashing a Van Gogh with tomato soup. They say their goal is to bring attention to the global climate emergency. Here in BC, they want construction of the Coastal GasLink pipeline to stop.
And the government, instead of acting responsibly, is building fossil fuel infrastructure. They're doing the exact opposite of what science and ethics is saying that they need to be doing. So anything we can do in our power, even if it is something like throwing maple syrup at a painting, if that gets attention, then yes, it's worth it.
In a statement, the Vancouver Art Gallery condemned the vandalism. No permanent damage was done to the piece, fortunately. The activists say they checked that the painting was protected with glass before throwing the syrup. Vancouver police are investigating. No arrests have been made at this time. Burnaby RCMP are asking for help in identifying a man suspected of flashing children at an elementary school. The incident happened Thursday morning just before 11 at Maywood Community School in the Metrotown area. Police say the man was pacing in the area before exposing himself. He was wearing a blue jacket, black pants, and blue and white sneakers, and had a black medical mask on. Witnesses say it's believed he was nearly hit by a car as he was trying to exit the area. Police is asking anyone with information or dash cam video to call Burnaby RCMP. Advocates say senior veterans are often going unseen in the downtown east side. Many are struggling with housing and accessing support services.
So it could be something like not knowing what types of benefits they qualify for, or having a support system in place to help them remain housed, and not only just housed, but to thrive in their housing and have a great social life and really enjoy these later years.
Conkin adds that a common misconception is when veterans get rejected for one type of benefit, they often believe that they don't qualify for anything else. That was the case for veteran David Higgins, who bounced around hostels for 3 years until he got sick and was able to get into a home.
Some of the SROs and all that, that's terrible. I mean, that's not living. And I like it here because we get looked after, we have free shopping, we have out trips, and they try to look after our mental well-being.
Advocates say another misconception is that veterans may not self-identify as vets if they didn't serve in a war. A nonprofit that has been providing affordable tech services in East Vancouver for the last 16 years is closing its doors. Free Geek held its final in-store clearance sale earlier today.
Sad that it's closing down, but I mean, it's good to be able to get tech at low prices as well, so.
Those looking for a good deal on electronics flooded the store this afternoon. Through volunteers and staff, Free Geek offers low-cost tech such as laptops, computers, audio equipment, as well as tech support. Its goal was also to keep tech out of the landfill and recycled. Unfortunately, they've said the store has not been able to make enough revenue to maintain the business and will be closing its doors permanently effective November 30th.
This does not mean that the work of keeping things out of the landfill and making tech accessible and affordable should not continue. And we're actually working with another organization to hopefully continue the work. So yeah, because we totally agree. This is so important, and we don't want to go just like that. So
you can find the latest information on Free Geek Vancouver's website. A redevelopment project in the heart of Vancouver's Jewish community is threatening the future of one of the city's only kosher delis. Omnitsky's Deli opened in Canada more than a century ago. The community says it would be a tremendous loss if it were to be shut down for good. Our Janella Hamilton paid them a visit yesterday, just ahead of Sabbath.
Smoked meat, pastrami, and salami. This may look like any other deli, but it's so much more. Omnitsky's is one of Western Canada's only kosher meat delis. It opened originally in 1910 in Winnipeg. The man behind the counter, known as Epi, moved it to Vancouver more than 20 years ago.
To me, deli is supreme comfort food. That's somewhat of a dying business in the world right now. There's not as many delis as there was like in New York in the 50s. So there's still demand for this product.
Much of that demand comes from those who follow a strict kosher diet according to Jewish law, which means the animals were slaughtered in a specific way.
It's near and dear to my heart, protecting this 4,000-year-old tradition.
Food is a very, very important aspect of most cultures, and not just food, but food that is connected to us from a historical point of view, from a rabbinic point of view. One of the things that anti-Semites did in years past is that they forced Jews to eat non-kosher food. And so keeping kosher is a way of helping one's identity.
Around 30,000 Jewish Canadians live in the Vancouver area, but Omnitsky's reach stretches even further across the border. This man and his family have been driving from Seattle to eat here for more than 20 years.
There is not a good deli, kosher deli, within 1,200 miles of Seattle. The other closest place would be Los Angeles. My son, who's right now in college in New York, said, please bring me back an Epi's Jumbo hot dog when he heard that we were coming.
Decades of memories that will soon be coming to an end for the 65-year-old owner who's decided to retire. He's been told his building will be demolished as part of the Oak Ridge Center's redevelopment. His hope is that someone will buy the business and help keep kosher traditions alive in Vancouver.
People think it's the last hurrah, but we'll find somebody to take over. This will continue, hopefully, for another 100 years.
But if he can't find a buyer, he'll be forced to shutter the business and more than a century of history. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
A German woman's 5-year coast-to-coast journey, all on foot, ended in Victoria today.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10!
That's Melanie Vogel. She's hiked from the east coast to the west and even up north along the Trans-Canada Trail with her final stop at Clover Point, making her the first woman to complete the entire trail. Throughout her hike, she ran into moose, wolves, and even a grizzly in the Rockies. She says she's nervous about coming off the trail and back into real life, but says her trip taught her one big thing to help with her anxiety.
Over the last 5 years being out there so often, that I feel no matter what, I can always step outside, go for this walk, go hit the trail, and just breathe.
Vogel hopes to inspire other women to explore the outdoors. She says one of her biggest challenges was when COVID restrictions stopped her trip for a year and a half. They packed their bags and left their lives behind. 50 years later, Ugandan refugees to BC are reflecting on their arrival. We'll share one family's story of survival next. They were told to leave their home country in 90 days. And 50 years ago, thousands of Ugandans did just that, coming to Canada as refugees. Many settled here in BC. Among them was the family of one of our journalists. The CBC's Corey Correa took this anniversary to hear his loved one's story as they reflect on a remarkable journey in search of a new life.
Let's start at the beginning. After staging a coup in 1971, military leader Idi Amin became the president of Uganda. The dictator took an extreme approach to African nationalism. He accused Asians of sabotaging the country's economy. And on August 4th, 1972, he announced the country's residents of Asian descent, nearly 80,000 people, had 90 days to leave. These people were second and third generation Ugandans, recruited from countries like India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh by the former British regime to work as laborers, merchants, and civil servants. Under the threat of violence, about 50,000 Asian Ugandans fled for safety by the November 8th deadline, uprooting their families, leaving behind their homes, businesses, money, and belongings, and seeking refuge in whichever country would take them. Canada agreed to accept 4,400 refugees, but took in a couple thousand more. Among them were my grandparents and 5 of their 6 children who were still in Africa. They flew into a Canadian Forces base in Montreal in late October before arriving in Vancouver, their future home. My Uncle Sam, the oldest of the siblings to make the journey, had just turned 19. I wanted to take my uncle around town, to awaken some of his earliest memories in the city, to try and get an idea of what my family experienced during their first few months in a strange new world. So Uncle Sam, 50 years later, almost to the date, this was your first point of contact in Vancouver. What are you feeling being back here?
I am really glad that my parents decided to bring us to Canada. It was amazing. The buildings, the architecture, the roads, it was thrilling. Everything was new and exciting.
This is the Mayfair Hotel, or it used to be.
Yes.
Where you guys first came to stay when you came to Canada?
It is.
Does it look the same?
Doesn't look anything like it used to. I've always wanted to come in here for the few times that I've been downtown and I've near this place, but I was afraid the doorman wouldn't let me in.
What was your stay like here?
It was a one-bedroom suite. We were 6 of us, but we made do because that's all we had.
This is the place where you first got a job. No, I mean, not this Whole Foods, but whatever was here before.
Yes, it was a steakhouse. Myself and my brother got a job as dishwashers. It was great. Nobody bothered us, although I never tasted a steak in all the time that I worked here.
Found the old photos from the basement. My grandmother was born in 1931 in western Uganda. After 40 years there, growing up, getting married, working as a secretary, and raising 6 children, she was forced out. These photos were among the few possessions you took?
Yes.
From Uganda when you had to leave?
Yeah. This was in Uganda. That's my mother's home.
Tell me about the expulsion order. Where were you when you heard about it?
I was at work, and then my boss told me to, go home. And the children, of course, came from school. I told them what had happened, that there was going to be trouble. Came at us like a bomb.
My great-uncle Willie found out about the order while he was in Munich, competing in the Olympic Games. He was on the Ugandan field hockey team, preparing to represent the same country that was kicking him out.
We had no time for all the stuff. We left our apartment, our cars, and somebody drove us to the airport. And that stretch of the airport was, 6 or 7 stops by the Uganda Army. And they were taking whatever money you had in your pockets, your gold, your silver. They stripped all the Asians of anything valuable they had on them.
We didn't care because we were worried about our lives more than our possessions.
Then how did you guys end up in Canada? I heard that it was your idea.
No, it wasn't my idea. It was my husband. He heard that, Canada was the best place. So that's how we came out here.
Do you think back to Uganda at any point, and does it make you upset thinking that they, kicked 3 generations of your family out of the country?
Not at all. I mean, I think back fondly because during the winters especially, I long for the heat.
Strange that we could just leave something that is yours personally and go and live in a country, come here with nothing and start a new life from scratch. But we did, and we are happy for it.
Reflecting on 50 years in Canada, you raised 6 kids here, 12 grandkids, 8 great-grandkids. What do you think about all that you've built?
I think that is a wonderful thing.
A triple threat of respiratory illnesses such as influenza, COVID, and RSV is causing healthcare systems across the country to struggle. Our Jamie Strachan reports says it has many calling for the reintroduction of mask mandates.
The owner of this busy restaurant just outside of Toronto isn't waiting to be told what to do when it comes to masks.
Throughout the last 2.5 years, we've been always pretty much going on our own way.
All staff at the Apricot Tree Cafe have been told to put on masks at work.
There's a call louder now to bring back masking. We just decided it's time for us to bring back masks. Just to protect our business, protect the health of the staff and customers.
Among customers, those wearing masks are the minority.
It doesn't really affect my opinion on whether I eat at a restaurant anymore.
But with COVID cases rising and flu and other respiratory illnesses spiking, there is again talk in some provinces of making masks mandatory again.
This is a real thing. A lot of people are getting sick. A lot of children are getting sick.
It's children who have been most vulnerable in this latest surge. Ottawa's Children's Hospital has had to open a second ICU. At Toronto's Sick Children's Hospital, many surgeries have been paused to deal with a surge in ICU admissions.
There are more ill and requiring admissions to our intensive care unit, and that's why we need to create this extra capacity.
So far, governments are urging people to wear masks in certain settings, but are rejecting calls to make masks mandatory again.
If the public health department says wearing a mask is optional, please do it. A lot of people interpret that to mean, well, I guess I don't really have to. But if the public health department said, no, this is mandatory, a lot of people would say, okay, I'll do it.
With growing pressure on many hospitals, that's not going to happen. Yet. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
And you're looking at a time-lapse of the Eagle Chair at Cypress Mountain today. Many people ride in the lifts to try and get an early start on the season. It was gorgeous out, and it will be for the week to come. I'll be back with your full forecast after the break. Let's take a look at that weather forecast now. You saw how gorgeous it was up on the mountains. More of that where it came from. Let's start with those current temperatures. It's 5 degrees at YVR right now. As you head out into the valley, a little bit cooler. 3 degrees in Abbotsford. If you're in Nanaimo, it's pretty frosty. 2 degrees right now, and the rest of the day tomorrow looking pretty nice across the province. Not much by way of precipitation unless you are in Prince George, looking at possible flurries at -3. If you're in Dease Lake, it's going to be sunny, -1. Prince Rupert will be cloudy though tomorrow. Not precipitation, but yes, cloud cover. 8 degrees will be your high. -4 in Cranbrook, Victoria, 8 degrees. Very nice. And that's also going to be the case for us here in Metro Vancouver. Those clouds will be clearing by the time you head through the afternoon hours. Monday, Tuesday, clear skies. Wednesday, Thursday, a couple more clouds, but you can see it stays pretty nice all week long. Some ideal weather en route. All right, that does it for us this Saturday night. Thank you for watching. For news at any hour, you can always go to our website, cbc.ca/BC. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a good night.